Our daughter has this disease, fever. When she was first born, we were told she was going to be blind. We didn't know anybody else that was blind.
It's a miracle child because he wasn't stated to stay alive. They told us that after birth for us to go upstairs and say goodbye to him because he's probably not going to make it more than a half an hour after birth. And that was like 6 years ago now.
I think we worked around in being dazed and confused for 3 months after that. We just didn't know what the future held for her. It takes you, it takes you by surprise when the doctor sits there and says your daughter's going to be blind and there's nothing we can do about it.
The eye functions much like a camera. The front of the eye contains the structures which focus the image and regulate the amount of light that enters the eye, similar to the lens and shutter of a camera. The inside of the eye is filled with a gel-like substance called vitreous. In the back of the eye is the retina, which functions like the film in a camera. Without film, a camera cannot take a picture. And without the retina, the eye cannot see.
When she was first diagnosed and we were told our daughter was going to be blind and she'll have light perception and maybe she'll see shadows or she'll see they described it as she'll look in a mirror, but the mirror after a shower and how it's foggy. So she'll see maybe like a mommy blob and a daddy blob, but she won't pick out details.
She was about 3 months. We started noticing when we were giving her a bath at night, just some whitish thing in her eyes. So we got a little bit worried. We took her to the nurse and everyone just kind of said it's all right and just couldn't see anything. And then we went to an ophthalmologist and they took a camera, just a photo that showed the red reflux. So yeah, it was kind of from that point onwards. Initially it was actually diagnosed as PHPV, which is another condition. But shortly after that, another doctor diagnosed her with fever. So,
unfortunately, he's a statistic. He's number one in Curacao with that problem, the first guy like that. So we were doing our best to give him the best, and by reading up on it and coming here and studying and try to keep up abreast of what's happening overall.
I mean, probably between the 70 families that I know in Minnesota, there's only 2 of us with fever. And when you tell people what your daughter has, they have no clue what you're talking. They've never heard of it before.
Before Ian came here, we went around the world already. We left a week after he left the intensive care unit. They told us that he has an issue with his eyes for us to fly to Colombia. So we went to Bogota, Colombia, to have a checkup done there. And they were not sure what was wrong with him at that time. And we went to the second doctor there with a second opinion, and they gave us a complete different other story. The first doctor said it's just some hemorrhaging behind the eye, nothing to worry about. And the other doctor said, no, it's ROP in stage 5, which is the worst. So we were a little shocked that one guy tells you have a broken leg and the other one tells you have a headache, so we're not sure. So under advice of our doctor, they brought us back home to Curacao and told us, let's go to Amsterdam, Holland, Netherlands. So we flew a couple of weeks after to Amsterdam, and the same story there. They didn't really know what was wrong with him at that time. Could it be this, that? But the name Dr. Tracy came up, surfaced during the conversation. So we stayed like 5 weeks in Europe, and after a while they told us, you know what, why don't you go over to Belgium, Antwerp? So we drove over to Belgium and did the test there, and the doctors said it's ROP, and do you want us to operate, yes or no? The choice is very limited at the time. I said, well, doctor, you're the guy, you're the expert, not us. So he advised us to do it, so we did it. And after another checkup after 4 or 5 months after, nothing really changed in his eyes. They stayed the same. So we were going to go back to Belgium for a follow-up, and they told us, no, that's a done deal. It's only one time you can do this. So they kind of closed the doors on us, and everybody else in Curacao did as well. But we continued looking for more possibilities, and we landed then in Miami, Bascom Palmer, Miami, Florida. And they really were not sure what was wrong with him either, but Dr. Tracy's name came back up again as a topic. So I said, I think we should head up north to see Dr. Tracy. So we did so. In August of 2006, we came up here, and he checked him up, and he determined what was wrong, and it sounded all logical to me. And from then on, we'll be coming here once or twice a year now.
Well, my daughter Emily was born with fever, so she was born in November of 2008, and We had met with a doctor back home in Minnesota, and when we found out she needed surgery, we asked that doctor, well, if this was your child, where would you go? And she said, well, I worked with 3 doctors out in Michigan, Dr. Tracy, Dr. Capone, and Dr. Drenzer, and if this was my child, I obviously couldn't operate on my child, so that's what brought us to Michigan.
Familial exudative vitreoretinopathy, or fever, is an inherited retinal eye disease that has varying degrees of severity. It is often misdiagnosed because it is so rare and usually discovered when the patients are still infants. Fever can cause retinal detachment, glaucoma, macular hole, cataracts, and excessive myopia or nearsightedness, just to name a few symptoms. While there are treatments to slow the progression, right now there is no cure. The gene that causes fever has not yet been identified. And when the parents of Emily, Layla, and Ian looked for experts to help their children, 3 names kept popping up: Dr. Tracy, Dr. Capone, and Dr. Drenzer. Parents from all over the world bring their children to Royal Oak, Michigan to consult with these physicians.
You see that it's not only just a doctor who just looks into the eye and says, okay, he has either RRP or fever or whatever, but the background also. There's doctors into the genetics part of it, researching that as well, and coming from the other angle. So they complement each other, and then one helps the other. So you're treating the whole body as such, and not only just the eye itself, but everything around it.
When I hear people that have been diagnosed 20, 30 years ago, and they didn't even have a support group to actually tap into for help, and you look at now how you have all these different mechanisms of help, and then on top of that, the research that the group is doing here at the hospital, it's just amazing. You know, it really gives you a sense that, you know, in their lifetime, something is going to happen and something will be available.
The internet has proven to be a valuable tool for parents of children with fever, too, making them feel less isolated and more in touch with advances. Organizations like Ropard provide needed support and good information. At the request of parents of children with fever, Ropard recently hosted a conference on this condition. The parents appreciate both the conference and the ongoing support.
And so I just think networking and connecting with parents has been so helpful for my husband and I.
We've been able to connect with a lot of families from the US, from Europe, basically through a support group on Yahoo. Yeah, just be able to sort of talk to people that experience the same things, and also help people, new people that actually join, and kind of, I guess, provide some of that support to them.
You know, this fever conference and just connecting with these families has been so great and so inspirational.
So how are Emily, Ian, and Layla doing now?
We're sure that he hasn't had any vision for at least a year after birth. And after his operation, his light perception came finally, and which he still has now. And day before yesterday, we were proven again to us that he can see something. He only has to wear glasses, thick, heavy glasses, and he detests that. He really hates that. So the therapy is twofold: to get the glasses on, and for him to use his eyes, because like you never had this sense before, and all of a sudden it comes up. You have to get to know how to use it. So he's getting to use his sight now. And once he makes the connection, we know it will take off. But the connections he made first. So it's getting there, and the retina is getting better. It's going back in its place slowly. So we're happy with this improvement.
Yeah, she's doing well. She gets around. She actually has tripped or fallen over less time than our younger son, who has no vision problems. So, no, she gets around fine. She's learning to read at the moment. She just reads large print, but she's learning to read. She's learning to ride. She recently, actually 2 weeks ago, learned to ride a bike. For ages, we kept pushing her and pushing her. She just wasn't interested. And then all of a sudden, just one day, just jumped on the bike and she rides a bike. So
We worked with Emily a lot, and now that Emily's 2.5, we still don't know what she can see, but she's walking, she's running, she's climbing. You know, she will walk across the living room floor and maybe see something that is not even a contrast on our carpet, and she'll bend down and pick it up. We can be reading a book, and if it's not a cluttered book, I can say, Emily, where's the sun? And if she's using her vision, sometimes I have to remind her to use her vision, but if she's using her vision, she can point to the sun or she could point to the bird. So she's doing great. I mean, her speech is just great. Her memory is, like, the girl remembers stuff that I'm like, I mean, yeah, she's doing so good. She did a little mommy and me class this year, and she'll go to preschool next year, and she's doing really good.
I guess we've kind of maybe learned to appreciate things differently. We've learned to adapt and I guess adapt things around us so it makes things easier for her. And I guess we've had to live with the fact that, as unfortunate as it is, this condition is actually a lifelong condition.
Every time we're at the hospital, and if I know a patient seeing Dr. Tracy, I introduce myself and I talk to that patient, because I just think making that connection and being able to talk with other parents who are dealing with the same thing that you're going through. You know, your friends are very supportive and they're there for you, but to really understand what you're going through, you need to be walking in the shoes too.
No, I remain very hopeful about the future.